Hello and welcome to the RSR Nürburg YouTube channel. You may remember, end of 2018, we have dropped a big test video about front-wheel drive cars on YouTube. Some of you have asked why the Megane RS300 Trophy is not included in this video. The reason was we didn't have one in our hand. But now, fast forward to 2019, we have 15 of these cars. And the other car next to me, the Civic Type R, doesn't need any introduction. You guys love it, it's nearly out every day on track, and we had the feeling, while the performance of both cars are very similar, they do it in a very different way. And that's the reason why we are here today at DTE. Normally we go here when we want to add some power to our cars, but today we just want to measure the stock power. The guys have a dyno, we are allowed to use it. Let's start with the Megane. We had strapped the Megane on the dyno and the car surprised us a little bit. The numbers that we got weren't what we expected from the car. And now we just finished the Civic, but let's go over to the dyno sheet and I'll show you everything in detail. Next to me on the screen we have the dyno sheets of both cars. The SIN lines are from the Megane and the SIG lines from the Civic. But first let's start with what everyone wants to hear, and this is the total power. The Megane made 280 horsepower and the Civic 305. This is actually less than we expected, so we were a bit surprised. But total numbers doesn't matter this much. We had the feeling that the Megane is more torquey in the lower rev range, and the dyno sheet actually confirms this. As you can see here, between 3,800 and around 4,000, the SIN orange line is above the SIG orange line, and that means that the torque is also higher. The difference is about 20 Newton meters. And then at the point of between 4,800 and 3,200. The Megane is dropping a bit more than the Civic. The Civic keeps the torque a bit more steady, and in the end it's around 30 Newton meters more. That's the reason why it feels more torquey in the higher rev range. But now let's come to the power. So the diagrams are more or less the same until a point of around 5,000, 5,200. And from this moment on, the Megane keeps the power a bit more steady at around 280 horsepower. And the Civic is still climbing until 305. See clearly here by the big line climbing a bit more than the SIN line. But to combine the numbers with real world performance, we have to move the action to the track.
So having come straight from the dyno, we know the most important question you have still needs to be answered. Which of these two cars is fastest out on a racetrack? Here we are at another RSR Spa Premium Track Day to find out exactly that. Now we've already seen both of these cars on track before. Last year we had the Honda versus the Seat Leon Cupra R here at Spa. And earlier this year, Ron Simons took our Megane RS300 Trophy out for a raw lap at the Nürburgring. Today, however, we throw the keys of these two cars at our two Spa resident instructors to see which of these two cars is fastest around a Formula One racetrack.
This track is cool. It doesn't matter if it rains, if it's dry. It's so much fun to drive.
In the beginning of this video, you have seen these cars on the dyno. Now we know how much power they make. You have also seen them driven in Spa-Francorchamps, which is literally next door, around 200 meters in this direction. Now we have the cars here in our workshop in Spa. The Civic is on the lift, the Megane is also here. Now we want to know which one is the lightest. Let's get the Civic down and put it on the scales. Do you want to know the weight? It's 1,391.5 kilogram, with all fluids topped up, tank full, without weight on the driver's seat. To be fair, we did the same with the other car to have a fair comparison, and the Megane is going on the lift next. And of course, you also want to know the weight of this car. It's 1,456 kilogram. But raw numbers are not everything. That's the reason why we hand over the steering wheel to our friend, instructor and racing driver Gabriele Piana. He's gonna take out both cars for a couple of laps on the Nürburgring, and he will give us some feedback after.
the goal of this back-to-back driving test was not to set the ultimate lap time. This has already been done by the manufacturers, and those laps are way more impressive than anything we could have achieved today. The goal was to see how two apparently equivalent or extremely similar cars would actually feel in the real world. And they feel very different one from another. The Civic Type R is really capable, especially the chassis is really sorted out. I was not blown away by the engine performance. This is not so different from the Megane, but the Megane is a lot more playful, maybe a little bit less grip, a little bit less ultimate performance, but it engages you a lot more, and it's, to me, a bit more fun, as I'm not after the ultimate performance anyway when I'm driving a road car. And this DNA in the Megane is really interesting because you can trace it back to several RS models. I've driven the old Twingo RS, and I've driven the old Clio RS, and even the old Megane RS, and they all feel extremely similar in this regard. So the engineers in Renault, they really want you to feel the driving and have more fun with it, ultimately sacrificing probably the ultimate performance, while the Civic is more like a Japanese approach, you could say. Like, they wanted to have a sharp car that would perform to the compromise maybe of the driver involvement. Of course, you don't have to agree with me, and this is the beauty of it. If you have already experience with those two cars, feel free to leave your opinion under this video. If you don't have, then you have the opportunity to come here yourself, drive the same track, drive the same cars, and then make your own mind up. We look forward to see you. Until next time.